I think a lot of people think that companies only come here because of incentives. You'll hear it called corporate welfare, whatever. People who are against incentives, many cases don't understand it. We are never the highest incentive giver. We look at a complete picture for a company and lay out the benefits of Augusta, lay out the benefits of sites, benefits of utilities. But a lot of people think it's who just gives the most money away. And in almost no cases do we give any money up front.
Yeah.
We have cost avoidance, so we may lower taxes for a certain period of time, but very rarely, if ever, are we giving a company cash to be able to do their location.
Welcome to Building Community Podcast. I'm Tiffany Heitzman, and today we have a very special guest, Wray. He's the president and CEO of the Development Authority of Augusta, Georgia. Did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am, you did.
It's a mouthful. Welcome, Cal. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you and what you do.
So, Wray, president of the Development Authority of Augusta. We are the economic development entity that represents Richmond County and the city of Augusta. Our job, to boil it down to the simplest terms, is to recruit jobs to the community. And we do that in a multitude of ways. We primarily focus on manufacturing and industrial recruitment. That can be commercial, retail. We can even guide mixed-use developments. We'll talk to residential developers on where is a good location, where the business is locating, where the people moving to. And then we partner with all of our surrounding communities. You've seen that with the partnerships we have, but it's not just Columbia County or Burke County. It's also Aiken, Edgefield, McCormick, Saluda counties. So that group of 4 or 5 economic developers, we work together, our staffs work together, and then we travel and recruit to the larger metro area as well.
And is that a common practice in economic development, like regions and counties working together?
I think it's becoming more of a common practice,
Okay.
but I'm not sure it's a truly common practice yet. A lot of people see each other as competitors.
Right.
But the way I say it, I'd rather see something located in Aiken than in Columbus, Georgia. And that's nothing on Columbus, Georgia, but we have so much of movement of people during the day here. It's much better for the residents of Augusta to have something located in Aiken versus having it locate 4 hours away.
Yeah, because I think here in what is it, like 60% of people that live in Columbia County travel outside of Columbia County to work. And
to flip that on you, it's 32,000 people a day drive into Richmond County to work every single day.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So I think that you bring up a good point. Like when another area in the region wins, we all win.
And that's exactly how we look at it.
Yeah.
And that's why we work together. If Will is competing with something in another area of Georgia, I will guide him on how to be competitive. And if I'm competing somewhere in South Carolina for a project, he helps me understand what are the comparison points and how can we compete with whatever. Each state has different ways to help a project. So he helps me understand South Carolina. I help him understand Georgia.
Yeah. Because the rules are different in both states. And when you border, we face that a lot in the home building, developing, different rules, different zonings, different, all the things. So you came to Augusta in what year?
January of 2018.
Okay. And really at probably a top moment in your career when you left Tennessee to come here. Why?
Give you a funny story. I told Augusta no 3 times.
Really?
During their process, they had hired a recruiter, and they said, "Well, Augusta would like you to apply for the job. We think you're a great fit for it." And just the way that entity worked at the time, they had an executive director. He had announced his retirement, and the way they were setting things up, it was like, it's not really an interest to me. And when I was in Tennessee, in Clarksville, Tennessee, we had 5 entities underneath our umbrella. So we had the Chamber, the CVB, the Industrial Development Authority, a private foundation, and then I ran the umbrella that oversaw all of those entities. So it was a different entity. So it just wasn't the right time. So it took almost a year before I even applied for the job.
They were persistent.
The recruiter was definitely consistent, and the state finally called and said, apply for the job.
And we lucked out. You've done a great job. Tell me a little bit about what's transpired since you've been here for 8.5 years.
Yeah, it's been a fun 8.5 years.
Yeah.
So when I got here, there was one employee. She's still with us. She just crossed 25 years.
Wow.
And then we've hired 4 more people since. Well, 5 because Cheney actually left and went to Columbia County
Right.
and now runs Columbia County. But it's great being able to hire your full staff. I've kept 5 of those 6 people
Wow.
since I've been here. My longest since I got here, I got here in January, hired him in April. He's still here.
Wow.
And he's had opportunities to run authorities elsewhere, and he's decided to stay here. So we've got good consistency on the team. But with that, consistency is very good for us. The board has been very consistent until the last couple of years. So in that time, we've done almost $8 billion.
That was 8 billion.
$8
with a B.
billion with a B.
Wow.
That's $4 billion on the industrial side. And then if you throw the data center in, which is $3 to $5 billion, that's where you get to your $8 billion.
Wow.
But $4 billion in manufacturing, which we're very proud of, because we believe manufacturing is what helps a community grow wealth, because you're making the product here. You tend to have good wages, which here are almost $80,000 a piece with manufacturing jobs. And that's the average. That's, you obviously have some below that and some above that, but $80,000 on average for 25,000 people is a big number to have in the market. And seeing that manufacturing grow, the biggest piece is the corporate park. When I got here, you had Starbucks. Great employer, one of the premier employers in the community. They were occupying 100 acres of an 1,800-acre industrial park that had really sat empty. So acquired in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. Starbucks located in 2012.
Okay.
Opened in 2015. It was the only thing in the park. So
Did y'all own that park?
we
The
did.
development. Okay.
We've owned
And
the
then
park
it
since
had-
the early
it had
2000s.
No activity.
Well, the only
Except Starbucks.
if you drive in the corporate park now, you can drive all the way to the end of the site. You see 3 projects under construction. You see roadway utility projects. You see rail projects. When I got here, there was a half-a-mile drive into the park with a cul-de-sac and Starbucks. So in 2018, Starbucks expanded, and then we made the decision. They had general planning for the park, but they had done nothing.
Okay.
So Valencia Way, which is where all those manufacturers locate, we made the decision to go ahead and build it. So we built a 2-mile road that some people called the road to nowhere,
Yeah.
because you just drove down. It's one way in, one way out.
Okay.
There's no second exit or second entrance, and it was just trees. Now, I can kind of see, because I can look at a topo map and kind of see what it is, but a lot of people can't.
Right.
So then we made the decision to timber 1,000 acres. Now you can see it. And then we started planning water and sewer, and had Georgia Power and Jefferson Electric and Planters EMC looking at how do you serve power. We had AGL looking at how do you serve gas. And then we started having locations. And now that park is almost fully built out.
Wow. And I mean, you bring up a good point. You talk about like water, sewer. I mean, that's what companies, that's what's attractive to them.
Utilities are a huge driver.
Right.
I mean, you have to. A company has a product they need to make, but there's a lot of there's a lot of process and steps to go into. Where can I make that product? Where are my customers? And then how do I get it to my customers? And we call it risk aversion. We need to take the risk out of a site location so a company can see the benefit of locating in Augusta. And that's really what we're competing with. We're competing against sites in probably 25 states now. That's huge search areas for these companies. And how do we set ourselves apart from those other 25 states and those hundreds of communities within those states?
And having the resources already in the ground or under, above and land is kind of what, because in anything like us as American people, we want everything now.
Yep.
And companies do too. So if they have to wait 2 years to get electricity or water, like that's a big.
Well, it's not just the wait. You can promise you're going to build something, but you have delays in construction, you have delays in permitting. How long will it really take to build those utilities? So having full plans, and in many cases, we built the road, we laid out that. So Valencia Way, we not only laid out and built the 2 lanes all the way in, we laid out utility corridors. So we could tell them exactly where the utilities were going to be, so they could already plan their design before those utilities were constructed. But then we had commitments. Once that first location announced, we had a 12-month or 24-month timeline that the utilities had already agreed to construct.
So saying all that, you said it's almost full. What are some of those companies that have located in that park?
Yeah, so the biggest one out there from an investment standpoint is Arubis.
Okay.
They do blister copper. They've got phase 1 finished. It's fully operational. They're smelting product. Phase 2 is under construction, should be done by the end of the calendar year. That only takes up a fraction of the site. There's the ability to have 2, 3, 4 more phases of expansion
For Arubis.
For Arubis.
Only.
And they're already at $900 million in investment, and they're
Wow.
not even completed phase 2 yet.
Wow.
So big project. They're already probably 200 plus employees, well-paying company, very old company, more than 100 years old. I think they have 8,000 or 9,000 employees worldwide, headquartered in Hamburg. So that's one. That's the one probably I'm most proud of
Yeah.
in my career with what Aruba's under-promised and over-delivered. They've gone above and beyond anything we would have hoped for out of them. And this is just the first 2 phases.
Right.
And there'll be future expansion for them. Good
Well,
company, very involved in the community, giving back into the community. You've
Yes.
probably seen them at
Oh yeah.
many different things.
Yeah. One of them serves with me on a board, and like jumped in, moved here, immediately got plugged into the community, which is a win-win for everyone.
And that's what we look for when we're recruiting companies. It's not just what are the investment or the job counts. How are they going to plug into the community? Because obviously Augusta and the region, we have issues we need to overcome. We're looking for companies who want to be a part of the solution. They're not the solution, but they're a part of the solution.
Yeah. Who else?
So out there across from them, we located a company called Georg Fischer or GF Casting. They've now been bought, so now it's a company called NEMAC.
Okay.
So very big in the automotive industry. That project is also a smelting project.
Okay.
They were melting metal, making products for BMW. So the front quarter panels on both sides of BMW, I think it's the X6 and X7.
Okay.
So all of their product currently will go to Spartanburg, supply BMW.
Made right here and then goes to our neighbors in South Carolina.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
really cool.
And then that's their phase 1. They have the opportunity for other phases in the future.
Okay.
So they're going to employ almost 400 people. They've already invested $225 million. They should be operational in August. This August. Their original goal was to be operational January of 27, and it looks like they're going to be 6 months ahead of schedule.
Wow. Anyone else in that?
Well, we also announced so GF Casting, Georg Fischer is also, they were Swiss.
Okay.
So that's where all my contacts are still in Switzerland, even though that division was sold. Now NEMAC is Mexican. Okay. So we have a really an international connection in that part now. And then we also announced a French company, a food manufacturer called Nexera.
Okay.
They haven't started construction yet, probably start in 27.
Okay.
But they make a food additive or a nutritional supplement out of acacia gum.
What is that?
It's a product that grows in Africa.
Okay.
And they take the nutritional values out of it and put it into those food additives and nutritional supplements. But other product lines, they do olives and several other things that they make into that same type of food or nutritional product.
It's very interesting. So totally random, but like, how do you communicate? Like, you're communicating with these international companies. Do y'all have like a someone that can communicate for you? Like, how do you do that? I mean, I know you have all these cool AI products, but how is that a challenge?
Occasionally it can be a challenge. Yeah. It's more of a challenge with the Asian companies.
Okay.
The Europeans, they all speak English.
Yeah.
So all of our conversations are in English. Okay. Now the state, they have project managers that have language capabilities.
Okay.
So occasionally if there's a concept that you're having trouble getting the full message across, you'll have somebody translate, but rarely is anything in English. Occasionally some of the companies will break into, French or German or another language, because like with Arubis, they have some facilities in the Czech Republic and Bulgaria. Yeah. So you'll have, I have a little language capability when you get to the Eastern European languages. So I've used that a few times, but that's very, very rare because I don't really have the business vocabulary for it because it was never business at the time.
Right.
But enough to communicate a concept. Like I was just at Select USA meeting with a company and they happened to be from the Czech Republic. Well, I speak a little Russian. Okay. Czech and Russian is close enough that we had a little bit of communication back and forth.
Yeah, I always think about that. Like, how do you, when you bring in these how do you communicate with them and break down those barriers?
Well, they are very thoughtful, though, when they have people coming to the U.S. to look at sites. They make sure they have the language capability. Okay. Very rarely on the European side do you have a visitor coming to look at sites and have conversations about a location that isn't fluent in English.
Okay.
Now, you flip that on the Asian side, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean or pick another country, because we've seen probably half a dozen or more countries looking in the U.S.
Okay.
They always have an English speaker, but some of the team won't have an English language capability.
Okay.
Or they understand it, but they're not comfortable speaking it. So on the Asian side, it's much more important to have a native speaker who can communicate concepts if necessary.
Okay. Very interesting to me. So, historically, depending on what's going on in the world, the world of manufacturing, there was a big turn for it. Everything went overseas. Is there a push? Is there still a push now? I mean, based on what you're saying, like for more international to come back to the States, vice versa? Like what and why?
Well, if you think about NAFTA, so many companies went to Mexico. So many companies went to China. China had a huge growth in manufacturing. Mexico, Central America had a huge growth in manufacturing from a cost perspective. Labor was cheaper. Now, obviously, you had shipping that was more expensive to ship it, but the cost differential of labor was so much. That is equalized a little bit.
Okay.
And then you had companies start coming back as costs kind of equalized. It wasn't a huge cost saving, but take China, for example. You lose your IP. You have to have a Chinese partner, and people are losing their IP. So then their competitors or a competitor would appear and make the product. So now you've lost control of your own product. So that helped push it back. But then if you just look at the last 2 years, tariffs has been a huge push. So having tariffs, so part of the reason that GF sped up or NEMAC sped up so much, they're only like-kind facilities in China. They're paying tariffs to put everything back in the country. And they were moving a lot of product because that facility in China will still provide the Asian market,
Gotcha.
but it won't provide the U.S. market. There was a gap, or currently in a gap period where your product's having to come from overseas and it's being tariffed extensively. They have paid millions of dollars in tariffs, not only on their product, the unintended consequence of our tariffs, and it happened to both Arubis and GF and others, your manufacturing equipment coming into the U.S., it's not manufactured in the U.S. It just doesn't exist. It's not like it's cheaper to buy it somewhere else. You can't buy it in the U.S. because it's not made in the U.S. All of that's tariffed as well. So you're doing what our administration wants. You're building manufacturing and jobs in the U.S., but to get your equipment into the U.S., you're still being tariffed on it. So it's a bit counterproductive.
Yeah.
You're moving hundreds of millions of dollars into the country to build it here and have it here the Arubis facilities, some of them are more than 100 years old.
Wow.
They were founded in the 1800s. So you've got hundreds of millions of dollars that you're moving into the country to provide jobs to American citizens that are still facing these same tariffs and minimal relief. And plus, there were so many changes during that process. It's hard to plan when your tariff can change overnight.
Yeah.
And tariffs get charged at different points. You may put something on a boat and send it over to the port of Savannah, for example, and tariffs have doubled or tripled, or even in some cases more, while it was on the water just getting here. Same thing, your product coming from China, tariffs change, and you pay it whether you take it at the port or whether you put it in a warehouse and then take it out later. Your points of tariffs get charged at different times, so it's hard to plan when there's such a movement in tariff rates.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost daily sometimes with
It was.
the tariffs. Like it just, has that leveled out somewhat?
Well, there was probably a 6-month period we were getting calls, even from our existing industries, that were getting hit with tariffs, and they're still getting hit with tariffs, and was a huge problem. I mean, Cardinal Health that just closed, one of their reasons for closing the Augusta facility was tariffs on their products. As a company as a whole, a company that employs tens of thousands of people, it's not always what's happening in Augusta, is it productive? It's what's happening elsewhere, and how does a company balance that?
Yeah, and making those
So
tough
it's
decisions.
less now. I don't hear that conversation as much, but we have other European manufacturers in Augusta that are from Belgium and from Germany that, let's say, for example, we'll use one, Prayon.
Okay.
I mean, I like me using this example, but this is factual. They're Belgian. They have facilities in Belgium. They manufacture their raw materials in Belgium and ship it to the U.S. for manufacturing. Well, their competitors are in Mexico or Canada. So with our U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement, or Canada-Mexico Free Trade Agreement, whatever it's called now, those competitors in Mexico and Canada aren't subject to tariffs. even though they're manufacturing their products in Canada or Mexico, Crayon, who is making their raw material in Europe, shipping it to the U.S., that's being tariffed.
Gotcha.
So they're competing against kind of an unfair playing field because they're manufacturing in the U.S., but they're getting tariffed, but your Mexican and Canadian counterparts aren't being tariffed to bring the same product in the U.S. It's depending on your perspective, an unfair advantage for your competitors not manufacturing in the U.S.
Yeah. And then you have to make those decisions of where do we go, or what do we do, or do we close, or all
And
that.
then in those cases, it's hard for them to pass that tariff along to the end customer. I mean, that's the argument. The tariff just gets passed along. Not always.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's split, or sometimes the company has to eat the tariff.
Yeah. To be competitive, to sell their product.
That's correct.
Because price, I mean, in anything, price, yeah. So what is one of the biggest misconceptions about the work that you do, or economic developers?
I think a lot of people think that companies only come here because of incentives. You'll hear it called corporate welfare, whatever. People who are against incentives, many cases don't understand it. We are never the highest incentive giver. We look at a complete picture for a company and lay out the benefits of Augusta, lay out the benefits of sites, benefits of utilities. But a lot of people think it's who just gives the most money away. And in almost no cases do we give any money up front.
Yeah.
We have cost avoidance, so we may lower taxes for a certain period of time, but very rarely, if ever, are we giving a company cash to be able to do their location.
Yeah. Well, I remember when BMW located in the upstate of South Carolina, Carol Campbell was the governor. And that, like when that first, and, the packet, it was all talked about what all they were giving. And I mean, he really was, scrutinized and then I now look back and I'm like, I wonder if people are like, oh man, he did the right thing, because now look what that area and what's happened.
Yeah, Greenville, Spartanburg, that whole area with everything that located after that.
Yes.
I mean, you can look at examples. Look at when Mercedes, I think 1995, 1996, Mercedes located in Alabama. And everyone was like, how is that going to work? Why would a high-end auto manufacturer locate in what was perceived as a lower skill level workforce of Alabama? And see what's happened in Alabama, and then look what has happened all across the Southeast with the Japanese and the European automotive manufacturers that have now established facilities: Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it's changed all of those economies. And look at Kia in West Point, look at Hyundai in Savannah. All of those have changed those communities as well.
Yeah.
And we benefit from that because we have suppliers that are supplying all of those.
Exactly. Yeah. And that Mercedes, I was down there, I think, was it last fall, for another program, and got to go through and
You were for
and
the
look at all
workforce.
Mercedes.
You
Yes.
went down for the workforce program?
Yes.
Which
I
we're
was like,
trying to replicate something here
Yes.
now. Yeah.
Yes. And that was incredible. I mean, and they were involved. They were at the meetings we were at. I think keynote speaker, and I was just like, but somebody took a chance.
And that's what we're looking for in companies. We want them involved in the community, whether it's workforce development that not only helps their employees, it helps everybody at Augusta Tech or Augusta University or Aiken Tech, wherever they're setting up these programs.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about almost $8 billion in investment or to come. How else do you measure success for yourself personally and for your organization?
Yeah, most people think we measure it just jobs and investment. We also look at wage rates. If you look at the average manufacturing wage or the average wage in Augusta, those are all going up. Kind of one of the numbers we've looked at lately is that workforce participation number. We have less than 60% of the people who could be working that are actually working. So that's 40% of our workforce that's sitting on the sideline. How do you get those people back in the workforce? That's a big challenge. That's something we watch that number quarterly as that number gets updated. That sits at about 200,000 people that could be working that aren't working. Now, that's 16 plus. So you got high school juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
You've got college students, whether it's technical college or university. So some of that, you take that out.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of adults, 22 or older, and I think it goes up to 65 before they drop out of that number.
Okay.
And depending on the source you look at, that number changes. There's
Right.
3 or 4 different definitions, so depending on the source you're pulling it from. But that number jumped to 220, dropped to 1 88, I think, if I remember a number. Now it sits at around 205.
Okay.
So you have 205,000 people on the sideline. How do you get them back into the market? Like my wife qualifies for that. She's at home. She is not working. But that number is those who could work, who don't work, but they're also not looking for a job, because if you're looking for a job, you're considered unemployed. We have a very low unemployment rate. I think it's under 4% still.
Yeah.
So you would think, okay, well, 4% of the people don't have jobs. Well, that's a misleading number. It's probably more like 20% of the people who could have jobs don't have jobs. So how do you get those people into the workforce? And there's varying reasons for why they're not in there, and it's different for every person. One thing we also talk about, have you heard the term benefits cliff?
Yes.
So benefits cliff, if for the people watching or listening that don't know, if you are currently getting some form of assistance, whether it's unemployment, whether it's WIC, whether it's cell phone assistance, housing assistance, transportation assistance, and you take a job and those benefits go away, you're actually worse off because your wages are less than the benefits you're getting. You're now worse off by having to go to a job. Nobody who has a rational mind is going to go and put in 40 hours of work to get less than they're getting.
Right.
So how do you get a skill set? So how do you provide training so that the wage they'll get when they take a job is more than their benefits, so they're better off? That's a big question. Childcare is an issue in Augusta. You don't have enough childcare facilities. So if you have children, how are you able to leave your children to go get the skill sets or the training you need? Sorry, I always say skill sets, because it's not just training. You've got to have something out of it. You've got to have a marketable skill once you finish a program. How do you get a person to that point so that they are better off and are now in the workforce and are providing a betterment to their family? Yeah. And that's, we also measure it. How many people are better off from what we do is a big, it's not an easy number to measure, but doing this almost 25 years now, seeing people who didn't have a job that now have a job, and and you can see that the companies you recruited to an area have made a difference in people's lives. That's why we do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great feeling. But you bring up a good point, because actually we were having this discussion yesterday about the child care and all that. And I think there are a lot of people that would probably enter the workforce. Excuse me. But, if they're working at a manufacturer who works, 4 10s or 12-hour shifts or whatever that looks like, that flexibility of like, oh, I need to be at home to get my kids off the bus at 3:30 when they get there, and even employers as a whole, and like being, I think we need to think more outside of, like, we don't just need childcare facilities. We need those facilities that can cover the gaps of these families who are working and making good wages, but can't get off work till 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Right. And we have more of our manufacturers who think through that. I mean, you have some who go, your child has a sporting event, let's find a way to cover your shift so you can go see that child competing in whatever they're competing in. And that makes a big difference, because they're not just looking at them as employees. You have some of them who call them partners. Yeah. Because they're there, they want them to have a quality of life and provide the services they need to get their products to their customers to make a profit, because at the end of the day, it's all about, can these companies make money? Otherwise, they're not going to be around. But they look at it as a family. We want our employees to do better. We want our business to do better. And you have to match those two together.
Yeah. Because, I think that's what people want more than anything. They want a good wage, but they also want some flexibility to be the parent or the grandparent or whatever, and not miss. Because I know I've had to choose, and I'm sure you have too. Yeah. And it's hard. Yeah. And it's hard. Like, you don't want to have to choose. So we were talking a little bit about like incentives and all that, and that is part of the big picture. But how do you make sure that a company, it's a right fit for them, but also a right fit for our community?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a question we look at. We are not afraid to tell a company no. Now, I've said this to commissioners before. We can't tell a company they can't locate, because if they go out and buy a piece of property and build something and follow code, they're going to locate here. But we do look at, what is the product you're making? What is your environmental history? How do you treat your employees? What are your wages? What are your benefits? How do you take care of your people? So we look at all of that in a location. And we are happy to say We wish you the best of luck. We just don't think Augusta's the right place for you.
Interesting.
But then we have companies that we think Augusta's a great place for you, and we try to convince them why Augusta's a great place. And it's all about the industry. How does the industry perform? How does the industry interact within a community? And are there inherent risk in the product they're making? Could there be environmental issues with that? So many times when we get a project in, whether it comes from the state, a consultant, or from the company directly, we want to say, what are those chemicals in your process, if any? What are your wage rates? What are your job types? Where are your other locations? What is your track record in those other communities? And we many times go and look at these facilities, walk through these facilities so we know what the environment is that the citizens in Richmond County are going to be working in if that project locates.
That's really interesting because I think you all as economic developers, development authorities get accused of taking anything and everything.
Many times we do.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good perspective that you probably say no a lot more than you say yes.
That would be accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, because
we want a good fit for Augusta.
Right. And I think too, like what's good for Aiken, Edgefield County, what's good for Richmond County, and what's good for Columbia County, and like all are different.
Very much so.
So if you get something, you might say, hey, this isn't a good fit for us, but it'd be a better fit for Columbia County or Aiken County or Edgefield County.
And that happens. We pass projects.
Okay.
We do project visits together. We'll do joint dinners together, and then they're looking at Columbia County and Augusta, or they're looking at Aiken and Augusta, or sometimes all three. And we work together because, again, back to that, what we talked about earlier, whether it locates in wherever it locates in those three locations, it helps everybody in this area.
Yeah. Do you ever worry, does it keep you up at night about you're bringing in a big company and like, do we have enough employees? Do we have enough? Is that?
Our biggest challenge right now is workforce.
Yeah.
So people would think, we do have companies who ask about incentives day one. That's always a red flag for us. I don't think we have ever located a project that their first question are, what are the incentives you offer? We lose interest very quickly because if incentives are your only driver, what happens in 5 years or 10 years when those incentives run out? And how easily can you pick up that facility and go somewhere else? If you're chasing incentives, it's probably not a great business model, and it's not a great fit for Augusta. The companies that we find the most benefit from are those that ask about workforce day one, because you can find a site almost anywhere. You can find utilities. Now, we have an advantage on utilities. We have more utilities than most communities, but let me take one step back. 20 years ago, the first question we got was always, what is your site? Because there weren't many industrial sites that had the full build out of infrastructure. So yeah, you may find some dirt that had the acreage you needed, but it was going to take 3 years to have utilities. Well, it's not really a site then. It's just a piece of dirt. Then the question became, what are incentives? And then incentives drove projects for years. It was which state could provide more assistance to it. And states were winning based on incentives. The last 8 to 10 years, it's workforce.
Really?
Where can I go to find quality employees that can make my product and we can both be successful?
Well, and I think another piece of that I'd love to bring to the conversation, because you and I talk about it a lot, and is housing. Like you're getting, these companies are asking about, what does your housing look like? We've
had many projects that go, where are your new housing developments so we know where our people can live? Because if our people can't afford to live here, they're not coming here. Now, I would say in almost any project, 80% of the employees they're going to hire already live in the community. About 20 they may recruit in, or people may move in. We talked briefly about Mercedes. I think they had applications from 45 states when that facility opened.
Wow.
So you have people who relocate for jobs and then stay there for the rest of their careers. So you're going to have a component of that on each. You're going to have the current citizens who are living here, who are going to accept a job. You're going to have some people who move in because wherever they're currently living, there aren't the job opportunities that there are in Augusta. So we will bring people in too, and we want our population growing. Now, you got to keep up with infrastructure, and you can talk about all the different counties here, and are they keeping up with infrastructure? But you have to look at that whole system. Do you have the housing for your people? Do you have the school system for your people? And can the companies accommodate the people moving into the community, or can your workforce accommodate the companies moving in? It goes both ways. So many times they'll send us job titles, or in the best case scenarios, they send us their codes, SOC codes or standard occupation codes. And we can say, here are how many people are currently working in these job functions. Here are the current wages. You're going to have to do better on wages if you want to get these people. And that's what keeps driving our wage rates up. That is good for the residents that live here. And it's also good for the companies in many cases, because there are now more people going into the fields because they're making more money. So therefore more people want to go into those fields so they can go to Augusta Tech, Aiken Tech, AU, USC Aiken, or pick another education institution.
What was the average wage of Richmond County when you got here?
Ooh, thinking back 8 years, I don't know, but we were probably in the $14 to $15 range, and now manufacturing is up over 18.
Wow.
That's kind of your entry wage.
Yeah.
I mean, you got companies like at Rubis, for example, you're going to be north of 25 when you walk in the door.
From the get.
Yeah, that's it. That's your entry level job.
Wow. Well, Cal, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today on the Building Community Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. We're really excited to continue our conversation with Cal Wray, so stay tuned for episode 2.